All right. Thank you very much for being here and checking out some What Was That YouTube conversation. Joining me this time are the wonderful... Look, let me quote their bio. It says, quote, in 2013, childhood friends from Phoenix, Arizona, Jordan White, lead vocals, and Brian Dellis, guitar. Let me just side note there, Brian. I never actually checked how you say your surname, mate. Continuing the quote, began writing songs together. Years later, these songs turned them into forming Jane and the Jungle. End quote. I could continue the rest of the bio, but we had a wonderful conversation that went much longer than I thought was the time I was going to be afforded with. And so let's check it out. Right? Thanks for being here. These two are wonderful. And so too is Mrs. White, who joins us as well. Apparently not planned, but you'll learn more about that when we get there. Oh, here it comes, Brian.
Hey, guys. Sorry about that.
Don't be sorry. Thanks for joining me, man. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having us on.
No apologies necessary.
I had to get my background away from a work Zoom background and something a little more fun.
What was the work Zoom background before the change?
It was like a piece of land it was the aerial over the Goodyear, Arizona airport, which is right by a piece of land that we're working on.
Okay. Like a live construction cam update, but just in still mode.
More or less.
All right.
Yeah.
The most important thing, so I was just giving some context, Brian. So the most important thing, firstly, is that there's no wrong answer. There's nothing that you have to do or say or feel compelled to do. I know that it's a fickle situation when you interview and you don't know who it is you're trying to please. The most important thing is that you're doing what is best for you two, not for me. So my long story short is that I've been in broadcasting in Canada on the West Coast for the last 10 years. I mean, if you go back to demos as a kid, then you would say 25 years. And if you would include all the rigmarole of college radio in between, you could say 20 years, but I'm not that old. And I basically quit because corporate radio sucks. And with every day, this won't be in the interview, but with every day, this won't make YouTube. But with every day that was passing the last several years, it was becoming very clear to me that the systems in place were not really respecting the true art form. And I'm a true lover of the creative. And so what was that is just a one-man show right now that is essentially a glorified playlist, and everything I own is split 50-50. What happens after that is, and it's not that much so far, it's early days, it's only been 4 months, but what happens after that is that we then, and we as a community and the subscribers and supporters of me, we choose where we put that money back into Canada to start with, because that's where I've been based and have been so fortunate to build my radio career the last 10 years, and my family, originally half of my family Canadian. And we choose then where, in terms of the arts and crafts and mental health of musicians and performers, whether you're a poet, whether you're in a band, whether you're a sound engineer, we choose collectively where that money goes. So I've been going this is the start of the 5th month of What Was That. I'm not worried about numbers of reach and bravado. It's not about posturing. It's not about I'm better than anyone else. It's about bringing together musicologists that want to affect change. My plan is, long story short, in 5 years, we can take all the figures when they're necessary later and take it to SOCAN, the CRTC here in Canada, and say, don't you think $150 a year for an online radio station's license is paltry? Don't you think that only a certain percentage of, before, because we know there's all different percentages with streaming and payouts and everything, is paltry? And so my long-term goal here is to turn around and help in part of that. You know, the Napster battle started 20 years ago. It's not news to us that musicians are treated like shit, really. So it's again, this will be my passionate intro monologue out the way. I don't aim to shit on anyone. I'm no better than anyone else. I'm just really fucking passionate about music. And that's why we're here. And you're also really, really good at checking out who the fuck plays you on Twitter, which I didn't think anyone was going to notice.
Oh, no, I always look every day. I love seeing that.
Well, okay. So
thanks for tweeting us, because we would have no idea. That's why I think it's so cool, because I don't know if I'm bad at it, but it's really hard to see who's listening to you unless they're like putting it out there.
Yeah, well, unless people converse, you have no idea what they're thinking. So it's whether it's digital or verbal. Anyway, so this is where we'll start now. And my Jesus Christ, this John guy's pretty pent up energy will subside a little bit to focus on you.
Oh, no, I love it. So I think that that's great that you're passionate about that.
Yeah, it's important. So where to start? Well, Jane and the Jungle, looking at the website, you've got the bio, 2013, childhood friends. That's wonderful. But what was your earliest memory of each other, and what sparked this friendship that has gone on for so many more years and through creative depth?
So actually, it's funny because I more vividly remember Jordan's mom from kindergarten than I do Jordan.
Oh, yeah.
And if you ever met Jordan's mom, you would see why. She's a very outgoing, loud-spoken, kind of gregarious.
You'll probably hear her at some point in the back yelling.
Okay.
Yeah, she's a loud and fun woman to be around. So,
and I'm the oldest of 4 kids, so Brian probably first knew me as like a girl with like just tag along siblings.
Yeah, because I remember Cheryl pushing the stroller. She had little Jordan by the hand going into kindergarten. Then she had little Morgan, who's even smaller, by the hand, and then little Bryce in the stroller.
With Brandon in the stomach.
And then Brandon in the stomach. Yeah, so it's that's the earliest memory I have of Jordan and her family.
But we were never friends.
Yeah.
We never really spoke. It wasn't like we didn't not like each other. We just had totally different friend circles. And then we connected after college. And Brian was doing real estate photography. And then my family were in like the land business in Arizona. So I work with my dad doing that. And that's how I was connected with Brian again. And another really weird story is that both our best friends happens to be twins. And so we connected that way,
Right.
So it's a female twin and then a male twin. And I used to be doing like coffee houses and acoustic music. And my best friend invited Brian to go because she knew Brian was in punk rock bands and like played a bunch of music. And then that's kind of how we connected.
That's a wealth of difference of remembrance when it comes to connection. I don't know why every word I'm saying right now ends with A-N-C-E, but that's a big difference. How do you feel about that, Brian? I mean, you look back and think, why didn't you notice me looking at this amazing family, watching them stroll in?
No, I mean, I don't know. Like Jordan said, it was one of those things where we just ran in different circles and had very, different lifestyles as growing up. Like Jordan mentioned, I was playing in punk rock bands. I was kind of a little more of a rebel kid, skipping school and, drinking and partying with my friends. And Jordan was more involved.
I was like the goody two shoes and like every club you could be in, drama, choir, track, softball, all the sports. And so that's kind of the people I hung out with, was in either the sports teams or the drama people.
Well then, sorry, Brian.
Oh, and I was just doing my thing. So so we just didn't run across each other often. It wasn't that, we knew of each other and I think we were cordial, but that was the extent.
And how many people did we have in our high school? Like 500-600. So it was enough where you didn't know everybody very well.
We probably had between 1,000 and 1,500 students.
Jeez, that's a lot.
Pretty big high school, yeah.
See, context is key. I love context. And as I said before, we sort of started this officially. There's no wrong answers, and I'll be cheeky here and there and prod away just to find those little inklings of narrative in the middle. So I appreciate that. You're not going to know of someone that doesn't go to school, are you, Jordan, for goodness sake? So it's hard to find a Brian if he's not in the classroom. So when you first met in the cafe then, how did that, so you were performing a show, Brian was watching the show with other friends, or you were at a show, and then set the scene on that night?
Yeah, so I was invited to come see Jordan play by, like Jordan said, a mutual friend of ours who happens to be a twin. And she just said, hey, come see Jordan play. She, just moved back from, college and a couple other places she had gone through, at the time. And I said, okay, sure. I wasn't really active in music at that time and wasn't really thinking I was going to check out this person that I was going to play in a band with later on. But it was just more like, sure, like, let's go. It's at a cool wine bar. And
he thought I would be really bad.
Well, yeah, because most people you go see are like, when you just get asked out of the blue, like, you don't know. Like, I guess I just usually assumed that we were just doing her a favor by coming, but I was really impressed. And so, and I was listening to what she was doing, and she seemed like she had a natural knack for the performance obviously singing and all that. And for me, like coming from my background, I was kind of like, okay, like I see kind of some areas where I can help out with, understand, getting the arrangements and stuff like that. Because at the time she was just playing acoustic guitar, just singing and playing acoustic guitar. So it was like, okay, I hear the gaps where we could add some stuff and bring these songs out a little bit more. So that's so we ended up just kind of jamming not long after and wrote our first song on the first day together. We're like, okay, well, maybe we have something here. There's a synergy that's obviously working out. And
then we basically created a garage band. And so we practiced in my garage for months, and we would have like the cops come over, and then we would have neighbors bringing their lawn chairs and then just hanging out. And then we used to practice. I think one day we practiced for 6 or 8 hours. Like we just wouldn't stop. It would be like all day on the weekends. Sometimes not even on the weekends. We would just
jam.
And we did that for a while, and then we played at little bars in Phoenix, and then we started playing at a couple little events here. And then Brian told me like, hey, I can't do this anymore. I want to work on my real estate photography business, and I'm really sorry, but it was fun while it lasted type thing. And then I decided to move back to LA. That's where I went to school. So I graduated with a musical theater degree from
Go
AMDA.
musical theater crew, yay.
Yeah. Oh, are you musical theater too?
A long time ago. Yeah, not a degree, but I went to performing arts school between 16 and 18. And yeah. Sadly, that year was, we did Moby Dick. I mean, I don't know why. Let's go back to you. As a musical Moby Dick.
Were you, did you play Captain Ahab?
No, luckily at that point, actually, that was the year after when I was hired as a media assistant teacher. So no. Because my roommate Antonio played the main role. Yeah, I did sound engineering that year. I was like, okay. There was, what am I going to be? One of the people on the front? Oh, shit. I couldn't sing or dance good enough to be anywhere else but down here, pretending there's a whale in front of me. Like that. I didn't want to be that role. But back to you. Sorry, Jill, I interrupted.
Oh, yeah, no worries. But yeah, so I moved back to LA because I had some buddies there, and I really just learned to love living in LA. And I put together pretty quickly, it's kind of funny, but I put together this Craigslist band of people that were just looking to form a band out there. And really fast, we were playing like the Whiskey A Go-Go, the Viper Room, all these great sunset places, and having a great time. And we even booked a little touring show to South by. And yeah, it's really hard to explain how that kind of broke up, but there was a couple in the band that wanted to just do their own thing. So I have no like ill will towards them, but it's kind of one of those things where it's like, if it's meant to be, it will. And if it's just not, for really no explanation at all, sometimes it just like breaks up. And that was kind of what happened there. And they're just like, no, we're going to do our coupley thing and just go off. And I'm like, okay. And so I moved back to Phoenix because I still had all these shows booked. And I begged Brian, it's like, please, can you help me do a couple shows that I've booked? And I'm going to put together a new band in Phoenix and just kind of carry out the obligations I have, and then just keep working forward and figuring out what to do next. Because I always knew I wanted to do something in music, and it just felt right. So I just wanted to keep pursuing the path. And then Brian was like, well, I'll just do a couple shows with you, but that is it. And so we had like 3 guitar players and Brian. We all went to South by the tour and played shows, and these guitar players thought that they would be in the band, and Brian was just there kind of teaching them some of the songs and getting them comfortable. And so after the tour, Brian is like, nope, I'm going to be in, never mind, I'm in the band now. And so it was sad, but I had to let the other guitar players, like, we couldn't have 3.
Well, it's funny. I had never thought about this, but what if, like, could I have gotten outvoted? Because the way that you tell the story and the way I remember it, it does kind of seem like I just said, I'm going to do it. See you guys later.
And of course I was always closest to Brian. Yeah. So at the end of the day, it was my decision. I was putting the band together.
Well, yeah, and you've
And
just been scolded by just to clarify, you mean a couple in the band, as in there was a couple that were in a relationship together that were going to go and start their own
thing.
Matt
So
and
that was in
Kim, or what do you mean?
LA. What was that?
Like I was referencing like they were going to go and start their own band like Matt and Kim, but I'm not saying it was Matt and Kim. But it was
No,
a couple. It
definitely was
wasn't.
not them.
Yeah, it just
But
wasn't.
yeah, no, they just wanted to write different music.
Yeah, fair
And I was
enough.
very open-minded to it too. I'm like, oh, like bring the music in that you want to do, and let me see if like I can help at all. And I'm so open-minded.
Yeah, because
To
my point with that is for Brian. To me, this is Jordan knows you, she trusts you, and she just got scolded and saw a whole rearrangement to her plans, and so her gut is absolutely, from my point of view, going to say, this guy gets me. We wrote this shit. The connection I know is pure and I can trust. So it's no disrespect from my point of view to the other two people that used to be guitar players. It will always boil down to where your soul feels most at ease and respected. So it's just like a default subconscious. Like, of course, you could say that, and probably Jordan's like, yeah, fucking let's go. Bam, easy. It's a no-brainer. It's a no-brainer. Because
well, that's that. I like your answer better. I do.
It's just what, me or the summary or what Jordan was saying?
Yeah. No, the way you just summarized of why that might have been, and I like that answer better than mine. Like I said, I never even thought about that I could have been outvoted, or whatever when I made the decision basically the way that Jordan tells it. So.
Well, you see that again, the analytical side in me says that you trace that back to your soul and your creative outlet. And it wasn't a case of you saying, I'm better than them. It's a case of like, I'm part of this. I love doing this. I'm charged up to get going again. Nothing personal in it. And a lot of why I'm very reflective like this is because many reasons why I left corporate radio were due to just lack of transparency and lies. And so while I'm no musical messiah and I'm not the be all and end all of radio or online broadcasting or any kind of conversation, interview, whatever you want to call it, I know where I stand as an individual. I know how I treat and I'm compassionate to other people. So it's not a case of, for me, again, reading it, you're not better than these guys. You're not trying to do that. You're not trying to posture. You just, the connection you've got. You wrote those bloody songs together. And I only found out about this group, honestly, the band, when I was putting together this station 6 months ago. Wow. And I was in, because this traces back years. I mean, you say 2013 on the blog, you go back to 2017 on Spotify, and et cetera, but I was in deep of hundreds of blogs from around the world trying to find quirky Finnish rock stars and Norwegian. I got a lot of Norwegian. There's a lot of great Norwegian rock and roll bands right now, but just trying to find all these bands that I didn't see in the system of corporate rock radio for the last 10 years. Because the reality is, someone like Jane and the Jungle, you're up against 60 other bands a week sending in their stuff to a mainstream FM station. They've only got 4 spots that can fit the ones that they like the most. Half the time, it's not necessarily what those in those positions want to be playing or doing. Oh, is this the infamous mum?
Yeah, I told you my mom would probably pop in, so this is her. You want to say hi?
Hello.
Sorry about that. This is John in British Columbia, right?
Yeah, I'm on Vancouver Island, but I am English, originally from England. But I've heard wonderful things about your personality, and it fills a room. Yeah.
What? How?
Well, Brian, tell the story,
Cheryl,
Brian.
Hey, Brian.
I was sharing my earliest memory of the White family, and you were my earliest memory. Coming into kindergarten with all the kids in tow.
Yeah, that's kind of a nightmare in a way. Like, wow, oh my God. Yeah. Well, what do you do when you got 4 kids and all within 6 years, oldest to youngest within 6 years of age? So, well, it's nice to meet you, Brian. I love the background. I like your background too.
Thanks. It's a lot of purple in mine, a lot of green in his. Do you remember what your daughter's first performance was?
Oh God, yeah. Oh my God. Well, actually,
grab a seat. All are welcome.
It was actually dancing with Nathan Good.
No, the singing performance. It was the waltzing Matilda.
Yeah, it was when she did her ensemble, like 2nd grade waltzing Matilda.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Oh, tell them what I used to do. Remember what would happen?
Well, we used to have karaoke machine, and she would be on it all the time. It kind of was loud, and I had sleeping babies. So we had to put it outside, and my dad made her like a stage.
Perfect.
And
Yeah.
a wooden stage so she could actually go on it, and we put stars on it, and they glowed in the dark because she'd be out there all day, all night singing because we have a TV out there. And the neighbors all could hear her. And if the wind blew, they could hear her all the way down like a half a mile away.
Did you ever get any? I mean, what was? I got so many questions because of this story. Thank you for sharing it. What were the songs?
Neighbors, they would love to hear him practicing in the band, in the garage, the band practicing and everything.
But a few bands do say that. Did they enjoy it?
The neighbors
as it
did,
grew?
yeah, they
Yeah.
miss it too. And especially the young kids too. And the neighbors, they said they would just sit outside, out back and listen.
That's awesome. Did it ever get to the point where you had specific requests that you wanted Jordan to sing?
No, it's so funny though. When she was in, you know what? This is a good one. When she was in high school, I think you were in high school, and yeah, I know you were. And they would have Little League just up the street right here, you know, and there's the elementary school, and then it's the middle school, and then it goes to high school there. They're all attached. And if they didn't have anybody, they always wanted somebody to sing the national anthem, and they didn't have anybody. So they'd call my husband, because we had Little Leaguers, because my sons are on Little League. So Fright would call, hey, can Jordan come sing the national anthem for us? Is she there? Yeah, she'll come down just a minute. So she'd walk down to the field and sing the national anthem for him.
And this was at what ages?
Well, that was Little Leaguers. So they were like 5th, 6th grade, you know.
I still don't get the North American
minor baseball.
So what, like early teenagers? Right,
yeah.
12-year-old, yeah.
For you? Mm-hmm. You were that age?
Yeah, I think so.
So you're middle school when that was going on. I thought even high school.
Mm-hmm. But I used to get really bad stage fright.
Oh, well, I was going to segue to that. Like, this must be, and Brian's got a wry smile. Like, oh my gosh, no, I fucking love this. This is great. There's no rules here. So because it's my radio station, I do what I want. Oh, I just kicked my light out. Doesn't matter. I'll fix that. Or maybe this is more moody, sort of half lit, John. Anyway, that must have been incredible, Jordan, for building that performance, for building that public performance. Did you feel that you progressed through it, or were you always just scared at that stage of your musical life? Did it help you grow?
Well, yeah, I think it did, because when I was doing the karaoke stuff, I was kind of in my own little world in the backyard. I didn't realize people could hear me.
Yeah.
And so I could like be a character. And that's something that's why I wanted to do musical theater so bad. And why that it's called Jane in the Jungle, because I like to perform and like embody a character. But it was really hard when I was first did like Waltzing Matilda in like in elementary school. I would turn like bright red. Remember that?
I told her
I would shake like nonstop. And of course, like my voice would get all tight, and so I couldn't sing well at all. But it took me years to break that.
We couldn't tell. I thought you did a good job. Matter of fact, because she was bashful and shy, but up on the stage, she just like came out of her shell.
Yeah, powerhouse voice. Powerhouse voice.
Said, how can you do that singing for all those people? She goes, I just love it. She goes, I belong on the stage. She goes, I just love it. This is where I'm supposed to be. And she always did good.
Yeah, I mean, there's no wrong answer, because for me, even some days, you need to channel the nervous energy into what you know you were meant to be doing and why you're there in the first place. You need to try and, otherwise, I mean, I've gone through years of whether it's I can't even speak, I can't do anything, I can't eat for hours before a show, whether because I drum in bands and do whatever this radio thing is and whatever stage performances. So it's just trying to find a way to tweak and balance and refine those energies to make it even more of a powerhouse performance. And that's only going to time is lived experience. It's only going to come in time after time after time after time. So I love that you popped in and shared those stories, because everything starts somewhere, and I can't imagine being nervous in having to be called regularly to go and sing a national anthem. It's the national anthem, which is kind of a big deal down there as well. So that is quite the baptism of fire in performing, from the karaoke in the back garden to the flipping ball field.
Well, she'd probably be here doing something, homework or something, and they want them up at the field. So she would just go, and then she'd come back. It just got to be so normal that we'd say, before we'd take her and we'd listen, it was really cool going, oh my gosh, what an honor, you know? And then it's like, okay, Jordan, see you in 5 minutes. You know, she'd ride her bike or walk or,
Yeah.
you know.
Well, tell them what you did. You picked me up at the lunches to drop me off at the voice lessons, remember?
Oh my
You don't have these stories ready. Like, Jordan, you're teeing these up far too naturally. This wasn't planned, was it? The two of you? Brian and I, Brian and I'll enjoy it.
I totally forgot about that. Like, yeah, I'd pick her up, take her to her voice lesson, which was just right down the street from the school.
So this was like during school lunches.
Yeah.
She would pick me up like once or twice a week.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. With Nancy Glazier. Yeah. Songbird.
Nancy's what? Sorry, who's the
singing? That's her voice teacher.
Right.
Nancy, yeah.
It's like a part of the family. I've only been here half an hour. Jesus.
And she was a music teacher, and she would be home. Oh my God! But then we're talking about you take piano lessons. This girl did it all. I don't know how she did. She was a top swimmer too. Like she could have went to the Olympics.
My goodness, I'm learning so much, and also that Brian has great access to Adobe Stock Sloth pictures.
Very competitive, but you wouldn't know it. She did cheerleading in high school. She did competition. She did softball. I made her do softball because I still want her to do sports, so she just despised it. So she did first year. She did chorus, choir, and you did drama, and then you did the United Way. She volunteered for United Way, and then cheer would have them doing all sorts of things. And then she goes sing at my my husband's dad lived in a retirement community, and she'd go over there and sing for all the residents, and she'd get volunteer hours.
This is coming in hot with the information here. Thank you. This is an awful lot to comprehend. I've got 38 questions now, and I don't know which one to start with.
Brian, on the other hand, is the academic. He's a smarty pants.
He just told us he never went to bloody school.
Well, he didn't have to try very hard.
Yeah.
What do you know about Brian?
Oh, gosh. I remember, yeah. He was very quiet. I don't think he liked the whites back then. He's got a great family. Jeez. Great loving family, because he was so quiet. Then
tell him about the party with the rollerblades.
Yeah, we would talk to him and he'd ignore us. And then Jordan had a party. She wanted to have a few friends over to go rollerblading, and so we were talking to the teachers about it, and they said, well, if you invite 1 or 3 or 5 kids, that's not fair. You have to invite the whole class, every 3rd grader in the whole school, so that nobody feels left out. Well, we have a group home next door to us. We did back then. And one of the boys there, he wanted to come so bad. They just love to interact with families and other kids. A lot of times they're not socially acceptable. A lot of kids know that they live in a
by the way, John.
That they live in a group home, and so they're treated a little unfairly. Well, Jordan felt bad for him and wanted to have a little party, an escape party. So we had to write a letter over to the city actually to get clearance for that little boy to come over and do the skate. But I don't think Brian came.
Yeah, no, he came because we have him on video.
Oh, okay.
And you were like the only one off in your little world, like skating.
Aw. I'll have to see that, because I don't remember all the kids. I just remember we had ramps out here that we did, and they could bring their skateboards or their roller skates. Yeah. Okay. Good.
This is incredible. I love detail. This I need to get Virginia Hanlon-Groll on the phone, who I don't know. This is segueing to a joke. I need more interviews with more parents and rock stars. Stat. Brian, where's someone? Phone someone. Get more people in this Zoom.
Yeah. Get my dad on the line. My dad is a heck of a character himself.
Yeah, he's like 6'5", and he is the biggest teddy bear. Brian, come on, you got a sloth right there.
Wait. It's been there for a few minutes. I mean, we've been so engrossed by your amazing storytelling that I
was going to say, I think they have a really neat story, because they went to kindergarten together all the way up through.
Now this is great. Let's compare, Brian. I appreciate you so much, and we'll get to you, my friend. But let's just compare the stories here. I've heard from Jordan and Brian, the kindergarten through high school. What's your take on it, Mrs. White?
How we met. or how we
Their
reconnect.
early days of
Me,
friendship,
I
how this
did it.
blossomed.
I connected them.
Here we go.
I actually
This is
connected them.
what we're getting to. Tell us. I should have made
Well,
more tea.
I ran into Brian at what was that
The
one?
restaurant.
Yeah, Bootleggers. We went in there to meet a bunch of our neighbors in there, and Brian was sitting down with his friend Jordan Poole. And I said, "Oh, hi," because I hadn't seen Brian in years. But see, I always thought that parents recognize the students, because back then he's a student. And so I said, "Oh, hi. I remember you from, Desert Cove and Shadow Mountain." And he goes, "Oh, yeah. Hi, Mrs. White." And hi. Yeah, how are you guys doing? Hey, Jordan, because his little friend, Jordan, well, I always call him little because I just remember him, but he used to have biggest crush on Jordan. And it was Jordan and Jordan. Well, so I said, "Hey, Jordan," because I was like, "You're just the biggest troublemaker," because he'd sneak into our backyard, jump in the pool, go swimming with Brian. They snuck in.
No, that was not me. That was Bryce. That was Bryce.
Oh, it was Bryce. Yeah. So, but it was really funny that when I saw Brian and Jordan, because I always give Jordan Poole a hard time, but that was neat.
Well, tell them how we connected.
So then we saw him, and then Brian was doing photography for real estate, and my husband does real estate. So they started chit-chatting, and then happens to be my husband's birthday is coming up, and we do a big shebang. So we invited Brian to come over, and so he did. But the thing is that I hurry up and I went home, and I called Jordan. I go, "Oh my God, Jordan, do you remember Brian Dellis?" She goes, "Yeah, Mom." I'm like, "Well, we bumped into him, and he's doing really good. He's really cute. He works out. He keeps himself in shape. And I think that you should, he plays guitar. He hasn't played in a while. And I think you should ask him if he wants to be a member in your band." And she goes, "Mom, he won't want to do that. I can't just do something like that." And I go, "Well, you know what? He's going to come to Dad's birthday." She said, "Mom, why did you do that?"
This is such a parent move. I
"Don't
love it.
worry about it." I said, "He's coming because him and Dad are connected now. But you guys can just get chit-chatting, and then one thing will lead to another. Maybe he'll want to say, 'Hey, you want to hear me play?' Or maybe you guys can collaborate or play together. Maybe he can teach you something." And so anyways, I think that's kind of how
Well, he went to the Cashmere show. Remember when the Cashmeres?
Yeah.
That's how it started.
Okay. Well, but the thing is that his best friend is Mark. Mark has a twin sister, which is Kelly, which is Jordan's best friend. So their best friends are twin brother and sister.
Okay.
So how do we do?
Okay.
Yeah. And so they were eventually going to.
This is a map of the conversation so far.
They were eventually gonna.
Brian, Jordan, Kelly, Mr. White, business, kid next door that came into the swimming pool. It's all here. I got it.
Jordan and Brian's best friends are brother and sister. No, they're brother and sister.
Twins.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they were eventually gonna be in the same group at one time anyhow. It was just a matter of time before you moved back too.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay. This is incredible. Now, something that has never happened to me before is happening. Zoom just told me that I'm a cheapskate and I'm on a free plan, and I have
was gonna
5.
say that we do have the Zoom too, that we have unlimited minutes.
For work.
Oh, you do?
Well,
Yeah,
this is
'cause
work, isn't it?
We're definitely going to have to fold into a new Connect in a few minutes' time. But just to check, Mrs. White, are you okay with this being on YouTube and everything that you just said? Because it's flipping brilliant.
Oh my God. How
Yeah.
embarrassing.
Not embarrassing.
It's
You
incredible.
did,
No.
right? You did.
If it was for any other reason, that I tell you how I feel, this was fucking awesome.
Oh, really?
This was
Okay, I don't
amazing.
care.
This-
I'll do anything for these kids. So yeah.
It shows, and it's wholesome and it's awesome. So I appreciate your time. Really, really appreciate it.
You're welcome. It was nice meeting you.
Yeah, and you virtually, and say hello to the other brothers in the background there that were going around like, what
Oh,
the
yeah,
hell is Mum
thanks.
doing in there so long?
I
thought,
probably have some more fun stories another time.
there's going to be so many parts to this. We're going to start our own podcast, I think, at this bloody rate.
Okay, take care. Bye, guys.
Have a good one.
The whole season of podcast waiting to go for this.
Let's let that sit a little bit, because that was incredible. That was so cool. You two don't feel awkward about any of that?
No, that's just how our parents are.
Yeah.
And Brian's family is the same way.
There
So
you
when
go.
you come to a show, it's like you get all our parents there, and they will talk anybody's ear off like that.
I love the details so much. That was sweet. And that definitely wasn't preconceived, the way that you were just rattling off. Tell him about the garden gnome. Tell him about the skateboard park. Tell him about the sloth. That's just that was natural. This was not planned.
No.
Okay, flipping heck. I left my
I'm not
deodorant
that
here
good of
this
an
morning.
actor.
All right, so okay, I've got a few minutes. What should we do then? Should we put a cap in it and then come back to? What do you want to invite me to a Zoom or something, or how should we do this? Because I've got.
Sure, yeah, I can do that.
And how much time do you both have? Because we've been going for 35 minutes.
Whatever.
I'm pretty open this afternoon.
Okay, I've got at least another 15, 20 minutes worth of questions because that was an.
Okay, great. Yeah, then I guess we can cap it here if it looks good on your YouTube, or what if you need to ask one more thing or how you want to end your YouTube, and then I'll send you another link.
No, because this is all off the air. This is just off the air. It's not live or anything to anyone else. It's just us here. So all I would do is I'm going to stitch the two. I'm just Streamlab capturing it. Just going to stitch them together. Nice and simple.
Oh, great. Okay.
So I'll just stand by for an email then, I guess, shall I?
Sure. Yeah, that works. Thank you.
Thank you both. This is awesome. I'll see you in a second.
All right, we'll see you soon.
Right, see you back in a
We'll get
short
back to you, Brian. I swear, man.
Oh, no worries.
Be right back. I just,
For hour 2 of the Jane in the Jungle story.
yeah, part 2. So I think what we've got now is clearly a foundation. The foundation is set. And Brian, any comments you want to make about what just went down the last little while? You changed to a sloth background. Why? You love them. You found that.
Yeah,
I mean,
I don't know. I like sloths. I think they're just neat animals, but and they're just funny looking.
Oh, tell them the story of how you got the nickname Sloth and Sloth Life.
I'm just gonna interrupt quickly, Brian. Your audio is a little bit lower. Jordan,
All right, I can just speak up or sit closer.
I adore. Is this Jordan? Like you have like a notebook in your mind constantly to say, oh, keyword sloth. Brian, tell him about.
Oh no, there's a good story behind it.
Okay.
And he was just gonna like whiz on by.
Yeah. So no, I really like naps a lot. And when we were making our Concrete Jungle record, I really actually there's probably nothing better than a nap at the recording studio. So it's a very expensive nap, as you can imagine.
Yeah. The audacity of this guy.
I
Yeah, we
only
find
like,
him napping the whole day, and so we call him just like a studio sloth.
I call it the sloth life. The sloth life is for me. So I just like sloths. I think they're purposeful creatures.
You crawl on all fours a lot to get to other trees to find potential mates, or is that taking the joke too far? Maybe a little bit too far. Yeah.
Well, his face kind of looks like a sloth too.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Okay, you didn't sleep at Pearl Sound then, did you?
Yeah, I've taken a nap at Pearl Sounds.
Good couches. Where they got guest rooms. What's the situation at Pearl Sound?
Oh, he did tell me that Blue October, if you know the rock band Blue October,
That's a
they
blast,
actually brought those couches into the studio. Chuck said.
The place though that I liked to nap though is he had a nice recliner that like clicked back really far, so it was almost like flat, so you could just lay and sleep. But you know what? We're actually some of the best naps I've had at the studio were at a place called Gravity Studios in Chicago.
Right.
So that was during the hour. That was during the Concrete Jungle record. We did a lot of work out there, and that was probably my most. I got naps like every day, and what I loved too is like I could just put the baseball game on my computer, and baseball games are great to like take a nap to because you could fall asleep for 20 minutes and like not that much probably happened. So it's just like watching, it's a little bit faster moving than watching like the paint dry. So.
Yeah.
and I like baseball. I'm not saying you're dead.
No, I don't take it as a slate. Which is your team then?
The Diamondbacks.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. But I'll root for the Cubbies or a couple other teams, but yeah, the D-backs.
How do you feel about anything really? I mean, sports. I adore sports, and a segue out of the conversation of music, but I have barely watched the football season in terms of soccer over in England. Barely watching that. Barely watching the basketball and the baseball. I just find it really surreal to watch it when there's really no one there until the last few weeks. I don't know. I can't imagine how Well, then again, it's not. They earn a lot of money, but it still must be so frustrating for them to just be sat. I don't know. How do you feel about it?
So I will say there was a couple things I really liked over the pandemic that for sports. I thought like the NBA did a really good job with their bubble over the summer. I thought it was a really entertaining product, and they did a really good job of making it not be like this kind of weird thing. Whereas like baseball kind of felt like a weird thing because they had all these modified rules to like make sure they could get enough games played. So they were playing these 7-inning double headers, and there's all these like weird modifications, right? Whereas like basketball, they just played the games. It was just they didn't have any fans, and they were all at Disney World. But I don't know. I thought that was pretty good. I was pretty into this last football season, although I will say by the time the Super Bowl came around, I was kind of checked out. But that's okay. It wasn't.
It's just too much back to back to back to back to back to back. Like every season that ended late has started already, and it just. I like things to have their own place. Like when I was saying, and not sarcastically, when Mrs. White was here, like. Let's let that sit a minute. That was a whole bundle of energy that came in. Let's not just gloss over it and move on. I'm saying Mrs. White because if you did say a name, I've forgotten. So it's not just some inadverted, polite English nature, subconscious energy, Mrs. White. I mean, it's from a place of respect too, but you got to let these situations sit. And it just felt like everything's just moving so quickly. I was like, well, I'm building my own radio station right now after all these years in the corporate side of it. I haven't got time to watch sports anyway. And then my partner's got an incredible 7-year-old, and I haven't got time. I'd rather put time into this and into them than to watch LeBron or anyone else get pouty or, and competitive. Yeah. It just felt too quick. And that's not a disrespectful comment to him. Everyone knows that he likes to win, and he'll get pouty if he doesn't. And he wins a lot. Anyway, well, back to you guys, because I don't want us to turn. Look, we've gone Mumcast, Sportscast. Let's get back to Junglecast. And... Okay. Lucky 7 Animal, Little Blue. These are the 3 most recent. I don't know from emails you were saying that there was something coming soon after this chat today, or something that just came out before. Or I would love to just dive back into the band here, because Jordan, your voice is a powerhouse, and I love watching all these performances through COVID, and then the radio station anniversary ones you did before COVID hit everything getting shut down, but. You can see clearly that there's an extra layer of your voice that just unlocks into all-out powerhouse. And so I also wanted to go back to 2019 and Tonight. Those are the only things I wrote down were your names and the song titles, just to be clear. Brian. Anyway, not that you can probably see that, but Tonight is one of my favorite songs by you since discovering you a handful of months ago, just going through all these blogs, which is what we were getting to, what feels like 20 minutes ago now. And so where would you start? You influence, I mean, you say on your website, Black Rebel Motorcycle Club. Yeah, big check by that. I see that influence. You say, brand new. Oh, yeah, speaking to me, because it's a very emotive vocal release. Where do you start in addressing all the words I just said?
Well, it's really interesting because I was telling someone yesterday that, I mean, even as my mom said, like I grew up doing like classically trained voice lessons, and even in musical theater, you're trained very classically, and I really have a weak head voice, in that opera voice I just never had, and I was on the sidelines a lot, and it was kind of out of frustration I think I found my voice, but it was kind of taking everything I learned, throwing it out the window, and I developed this like chest voice that I was never taught. And I didn't ever try to be anyone or sound like anybody. It was just literally like me. Like I always wrote stuff, and I would just try to sing anything that I could. And that's kind of how I stumbled upon my voice. Like I'm not a smoker. People think that I am, but I think it's really just the motive, like power behind just being told that I just could never do it.
Well, I certainly feel that in some instances, and it's nice to put the connection to the classical, because I don't know if this is just something you do subconsciously, but I find a lot in your performances that you do flirt that line between major, minor. You do pull down into different registers that just add a bit more tension to your lyricism, not lyrical, but lyricism. Is that, so that's purposeful then? You are playing with that bit of training and adding the lessons learned yourself vocally?
Yeah, I do like that. Kind of like you said, the tension, and it sounds kind of off, and then you go to the note again and you hit it. I like sliding, and I like it not to sound perfect, and I like the cracks that happen in my voice, which producers don't always like. But during the shows and stuff, you could it's pretty cool at shows. Like, we have a very cool live, just like grungy rock energy that is really cool.
Brian, you don't do any backing vocals?
Nope, I don't. I would if I was asked to. I'm not a great singer. I guess I'll just say that. Although I did used to sing in my own bands, but very different vocal delivery style. So I suppose it worked for those types of scenarios. So, and I don't have a lot of experience with harmony either. So I don't know. I'm somewhat helpful at finding harmony, but mostly that's just based on guitar ear or finding like counter melodies and stuff. But that's not so much from a vocalist standpoint.
And I wasn't.
Brian will no longer ever be in charge of any harmony stuff.
Why is that? What did I do?
Oh.
Well, this was a few years ago where.
Oh, well, hang on. I need to firstly say my question wasn't pointed. It was going to lead into how you go about songwriting, but this sounds tasty, so we'll jump back to you.
Okay.
Yeah, so I kept getting this, I guess it's kind of a complaint, but people wanted more like harmony singers. And like, keep in mind, like, we're only playing like 300 cap room, like tiny rock venues in tiny stages. And it's like, really, you want a whole group of harmony singers? So finally, and Brian was one pestering me too, and like, you got to do it. My parents wanted, and all this, and like, people really like it. And I'm like, okay, great. And so we had a bunch of harmony people that really wanted to do it show up, and I gave them the music and said, hey, we're going to practice the night before, and here's, your harmony tracks. And it was just like heartbreaking to tell them like that they couldn't play the night after because they couldn't hit the notes. And this is not easy harmony. And after that, I'm like, okay, no one is ever in charge of harmonies again, unless it's the producer or like we're playing a huge show where we can like hire a professional. But other than that, I'm like, no one's singing anything.
Why is that my fault? I had nothing to do. I didn't.
Remember, I told you this.
I didn't arrange the harmonies. I wasn't trying to teach the harmonies, so I don't know what I did. But okay, fair enough. I won't participate in harmonies. What I do like though is in my little box, not to get too far off topic, is with the sloth behind me. It makes me look like I have this really wild big hair.
Yeah, it's like the other Brian's beard, uncontrollable.
Exactly. Anyways, but no, back to what you really, really wanted to go with it, John, which was the songwriting thing. So I guess we'll get back on track here with where you wanted to go originally.
Yeah, well, I mean, look, there's no wrong answers. And also what's important to say is if the two of you after this conversation feel that you want that bit removed, I remove it. It's your art, not mine. And it's important that the artist gets respected. From my point of view, I thought that was a delightful little trip down memory lane. And that's why I always have the Zoom screens on everyone at the same time and not just switching between the person talking, because it's a bit more fun. But so how does that lean into each other then in terms of, is it just you, Jordan, that comes up with the stories? Because you mention in your bio and you say in previous interviews that a lot of this is from a place of yourself and your experiences as a person, as a collective. Is there any collaboration? And there's no wrong answers. Or how do you go about putting your songs together? Because for me, tonight, one of the most powerful songs you've ever written, and Lucky 7, I've been playing an awful lot on What Was That? Those are the two for me that really get me going for Jane in the Jungle.
No, well, thank you.
My camera keeps going out of focus.
It's funny that you say tonight, because I don't know how you found our music, but Tonight is a very avant-garde song. And it's the only one of our songs that is currently on the touch tunes. Like if you go into a bar and you can like pick them.
Oh, I don't even know what that is. I don't. Right. Okay.
It's kind of like a little jukebox, but it's like a modern day one.
Right.
And I thought that was just so interesting they had Tonight. And Tonight is one of my favorite songs too. And it's really, really a cool one to see live. But each song is different and not one song is the same. And we don't have like a set, this is how we write songs. But for the most part, you know, the guys will either bring in a riff or I journal a lot. And sometimes like a riff will match an idea or a visual that I have in my mind. And then we'll kind of just go at it. And the guys are really kind of just kind of letting me like flow really easy words. And sometimes they don't always mesh well together. Sometimes they connect really easy. And every now and then, sometimes I'll ask the guys for help or, hey, like, what is cool here? Or I'm a little stuck. And of course, they'll help. But we all kind of stay in our own lane where we're all kind of just like at the same time we're working on our parts, but we're doing it kind of together. If that makes any sense.
Yeah, you just got to go with it in the
how
moment.
It goes.
So if there's just the three of you as the core group, then Brian, are you writing drum parts, or how do you flesh that out?
Well, it depends, I guess. Like, for example, when we go into the studio with these songs, sometimes I'll have some ideas, but a lot of times when it comes into getting into the studio, I like to see what the drummer does. I like to see what like a producer, like, you know, for example, like Chuck over at Pearl Sounds, I like to kind of see what they're doing. And, you know, because these people are drummers, so they have a better ear for it than I do. You know, when we're rehearsing or if we're going to workshop a new song to just play it out or whatever, I'll throw some ideas in the mix. When it comes to that, I used to be a lot more hands-on to everything than I am now, but we have such a good group now, and we're, I would say, well-oiled, you know, kind of a well-oiled machine at this point. So it's like Jordan says, like everybody kind of stays in their lane.
Well, and everyone's so good at their thing, and we learn really, really well. It's taken some time to find like a good group of like a team and like a band, which we have that for sure. But yeah, everyone is so talented and good, and we kind of just bring what we're good at and like mesh it together. That we don't try to step on anyone's toes. Like, sure, someone may give an idea here and there, but it's all very kind and just coming at it like, how would you say, just as maybe just a little advice, take it or leave it.
It's collaborative. It's collaborative and it's constructive. So, you know, I mean, very, very seldom is there like a veto that happens that says, nope, like we should not play that guitar part or we should not sing that line. You know, I mean, like we're all
very supportive of each other. And what's really interesting, an example for our new song that we're going to be putting out, I think in April, which we'll for sure share with you. We were doing it in our little rehearsal space that we have. And what did you tell me about like how I did the octave lower?
Oh yeah. So this was
and like, you don't rarely say this to me, but this was one time that you did.
Yeah. I'm not just because I'm not a good vocalist. I typically don't make a lot of input. It's not specific. It's mostly about note choices, melody, things like that. You know, Jordan's so much better than I am at that. So I usually just shut up. But in this one instance, I was like, hey, like this song, like I need you to like grab, like the vocal needs to like grab me by the collar and like shake me, you know? So I was kind of using the example of like Dave Grohl as like a singer. Like, you know, when you listen to the Foo Fighters, it's almost like he's like right up in your face, like yelling in your face. And it's like, that's how I want to feel when I hear it. And she did it and it was like perfect. And I don't know if she overdid it at first just to like be like F you, but it was just right. So yeah, so that's one of the few times that we've had like kind of that constructive criticism that resulted in something that I think really made a big difference in the way the song came out. So yeah.
So this is the upcoming April release we're talking about.
Correct.
And then sorry, Jordan. Yeah.
I was going to say to us, we really wanted to just do a rock song because we feel like we bring the energy and the vibe during our live shows. But one of our notes that we've been getting the past couple of years with our newest stuff that we put out in 19 and 20, is that people were like, well, you're kind of alt, you're rock, but you're not hard rock. So we don't know where to put you. And we're kind of confused. And we didn't want to confuse people because we know we can be like rock.
Right. This sounds like a label person talking.
Yeah, and it was some like stations too. They were like, you don't fit. And to their point, maybe in like some of our stuff, they were like, it's a little too clean. And we're like, okay, well, that's a bummer because during our shows, like we're not clean. And so as a team, we're just like, well, let's just do a badass rock song because that's who we are anyway. Like we're not changing our sound. We're like, why didn't we think of this earlier? And so it's called Trouble, and that will be coming out, I think sometime in April. We're working on the day now. But yeah, it's our kind of our just middle of the road. We hope it's people like it as a rock song.
It's interesting. You know, there's, again, no wrong answers and not trying to pry questions out. I find that, or answers out from my questions. I find that fascinating because modern rock radio in Canada, what attracted me to it when I backpacked here 13 years ago was you would hear Tool followed by Daft Punk. Now that we're not in 13 years ago, but that would be like their classic core. Yes, you'd hear Nirvana's and Soundgarden's and Alice in Chains and the bands that I fell in love with growing up, and the Rage Against the Machines and Offspring, etc. But modern rock now in Canada is modern alts. You hear more of the 21 Pilots and Imagine Dragons than you do the rock. Modern rock in Canada are scared of throwing a massive net here, but they're scared really of the heavier and actual rock bands. And you read all these fucking stupid articles of rock and roll is dead. Rock and roll is not dead, in my opinion. It's purely a set of circumstances and systems in place that mean it's harder to find. And your average Joe, and this is nothing on anyone, no taint on anyone, that just listens to the radio will go, yeah, rock is dead, because all I hear is this pop rock. And it gets me going, and it bugs me when people in radio, they don't realize that they're talking to an artist. I mean, it's not about them and trying to fit into their system. It's about you and what you're letting out as an artist. And for me, from everything that I've gone through in the few months that I've got to know this band and have learned a shit ton more about today, you are absolutely a rock band. You're a modern rock band because everyone's modern because we're in the modern days. So whatever, but it's a rock band. It's not an alt band. You're allowed ballads. When I listen to your music, I think Alice in Chains. You definitely listen to Alice in Chains. I don't like comparing anything. I'm just filing it in my favorite band collection here. And I can hear some references. And so the easy thing that radio does is what I just did. They compare you to another band, and an artist start to bend and break from what their ideal is. Now, the key here is that you said you're not going to change your identity, and that's great. But so many bands do, and they throw everything at it. The image, Machine Gun Kelly giving an interview with Spotify the other week saying, if you don't wear Doc Martens at the Vans Warped Tour, then get out, you don't know what rock and roll is. Well, not everyone's got $1,000 for a costume, dude. We will define as individuals what rock and roll is to us. Whether the system or the world gets it is down to them, and that's fine. But man, does it fire me up when I hear band after band saying, and I know immediately it's a fucking radio station or a label.
Yeah.
It's so obvious.
And, I appreciate the passion behind that too, because like what you said just really resonated with like young Brian, about the band's Warped Tour and hearing about Machine Gun Kelly and all that stuff. Is it's like, punk rock and rock and roll, like the foundation of it is people who had their own spirit and they wanted to express themselves in the way that they saw fit. Like, it's funny, I'm actually sitting here at my coffee table and I have this great coffee table book everybody looks at when they come over. Well, you can't see it because there we go. Encyclopedia of Rock. And it's like, you got freaking, a sloth. Anyways.
I get it.
Like the Ramones are on the front of that book. And it's like, and all these bands that became huge and famous, but it's like those bands, they followed the beat of their own drum and whether it was dress or song style or lyricism, message, whatever their activism was, like they did it because that was what they were about. And that's what rock music is about, is coming to the beat, going to the beat of your own drum. And I don't think that there's no formula for it in my opinion. No. I realize there's formulaic things out there in radio and all that crap, but
I mean, it's frustrating because I absolutely want you all to be in heavy rotation on stations across the planet. And it's frustrating because you will have to go about tweaking things here and there, but you can still keep your identity. But then I just hope that bands don't lose sight of who they are by trying to, the station I used to work at, we had a Band of the Month program, and bands would email me because I ran it for just a year, but before I left, but bands would email and say, I really want to be band of the month. That's all I want to do. Because the perception is, and radio does help, it is such an integral, important tool in the arts when used properly. But when bands are told and advised in the ways that I've spoken with many about and saying, you got to be this, you got to be that, it is awfully dangerous, not just for their music, but for their flipping souls, for their hearts. David Bowie, if he was still here and saw that Machine Gun Kelly thing, would be like, you need to calm down. You're allowed to do what you want to do. And look at me, I metamorphosized through all these different characters. Everyone said, you're a freak, you can't do it. That's okay. They got their opinions. You just do you. The problem with rock and roll is that there's too many people telling you what it is and should be, which is, yes, jumping on the back of your point, Brian, but there's too many people saying this is what it is. And then everyone in this day and age where there's so many of us that are more visible now due to technology, feeling that pressure of, if you imagine, I always wished so bad I was born in that day and age of the BBC guys that got hired for BBC being on pirate radio, the movie years ago, being on that boat off the shores of England. I wish so bad that I was born in the late 50s, early 60s to grow up in that Sabbath era, in that Queen era, in that Bowie and Pink Floyd era, because if all those bands had the internet way back when, would they have changed a little bit? Or would they have stayed true to their artistic integrity and their goal, what they had in mind? It's fascinating. I feel that there's so much around us to absorb, and then you self-reflect, and then you self-defeatist go against yourself in comparing. And I've done it with this radio station, looking at podcasts or other things, and I'm trying to run before I can walk after all these years, knowing damn well what I feel is great, compassionate radio and elevating artists. It's not going to happen overnight, but that's what worries me about the people that don't come back to that starting point of, I know who John is, I'll speak for me. What if they don't know and they're still trying to be what everything else is? You're just losing yourself. It's so devastating because it's so easy to access and to compare Jane and Jungle against this band, against that band. And then you go, well, why are these four bands getting played and we're not? Is it because we said we wouldn't change? I mean, if we stop all my ranting and raving and go back what feels like 20 minutes to when Jordan said, we know who we are, we're a rock band, and it's still a song that you made because you love to make music together and you've made it, you haven't edited yourself to fit their system, but if they want a straight rock, well, we know where that. Here you fucking go then. Mm-hmm. Little passionate rant over. But,
no, that is perfect. I totally agree. And actually it was, to your point, like it could be devastating for anybody. And I don't know why we thought we were an alternative band, maybe when we were starting out, because to me it was, and maybe this is a US thing, but it's like you're either alternative or you're like this hard rock, goth rock.
Yeah, like you go like.
And not many females are in there. Yeah. And so now we're confident in like what you just said. It's like, well, yeah, we're just a rock band. And I think like you, just to your point, is that I think there's going to be more modern rock artists, like you said, because we don't fit that sleepy alt sound that is now classified as like alternative.
Yeah,
it's fascinating,
I mean, like, and something that like you were talking about some of these bands earlier is like growing up in the 90s. Like to me, alt was bands like Nirvana, bands like Soundgarden, Pearl Jam, some of those grunge bands, but also bands like Red Hot Chili Peppers and Third Eye Blind and bands like that were maybe a little bit more towards the pop sensibilities. But like they were, to me, those were alternative bands, like when I was growing up. And so now, like, I guess I just struggle with the genre shift because now alternative is things like Billie Eilish and 21 Pilots, Glass Animals, some of these other bands that have elements to them that aren't, I guess, as I grew up, traditionally alternative bands. Like those types of bands would have been, I don't even know, but I don't even know how you classify them back then, but who cares? I mean, they are what they are. But it is just interesting to see. And I think that was part of our genre struggle too, is we didn't adapt our terminology to be updated with what people were calling today's alternatives. So, one other thing I kind of want to go back to and bring up really quick, because it's interesting. And I'd love to hear your opinion about it, John, and maybe just kick the ball around here for a minute, is part of me thinks it's good for rock music that you have artists like Machine Gun Kelly or Miley Cyrus or some of these massive stars who are kind of saying, hey, like, we're doing a rock record. but part of me also is a little concerned that it's going to just water down the genre in a weird way. So I don't know. It's like guitars are starting to come back to being cool again. And so, I mean, I'd love to hear both your guys' opinions about that. Is do we think having these massive mainstream stars shift their genre this way, is that a good thing, a bad thing? You know, how do you feel about it? I'm just curious.
Well, I remember being at Reading Festival, I think about 17 years ago, and Funeral for a Friend had just taken to the stage.
I love that band.
And they had just released a record. I forget the name now. What was that record full of all those incredible strings? It was a real orchestral effort.
Oh yeah, it was like that was like actually their first big mainstream kind of breakout. Had like what was that song called? I know the record time. I'll look it up while we're.
I don't want to even guess because I don't like lying, and I'll just be shooting from the hip on it. But I remember being with all my friends, and we were, on the grounds, and half of my friends were like, "This is tripe. I don't get it. What are they doing? Why are they changing?" The way I look at music and at artists is that they'll define and they'll decide what they're doing. And I don't want to go and watch a band that is doing the same. Because every time I listen to a song, I want to dive in. I dive into layers of it. So, and you can track back and watch earlier interviews. It's not like I've got it written on my wall up here, but I listen to songs 30 to 50 times. Wow. And I peel away the layers. What's the lead vocal doing? Okay, what's the backing vocal doing? Right, what's the first guitar part? The second, what are those little licks doing here? They've got every single layer I go through, and it's trying to find the soul that made that. Now, for me, to answer towards your question, this is great. That's fine, because Machine Gun Kelly and Miley Cyrus are making art on their own terms, and as we all know, they've got a lot of opinions to back it up as well. And it can only be a good thing for them as an individual. But if you're going to try and take ownership of something and say that you are the be-all and end-all, that's arrogance. That's okay. That's part of rock and roll, I guess, as well. So they can do what they want with it. But for me, I'm looking for that rounded show. So when that Funeral for a Friend set finished, my friends are like, I've never seen a band like that bring a string quartet out before. And then all of a sudden, Metallica, S&M, Philly, what was it? Was it the Philly Philharmonic? Oh, well, what a word that is.
Yeah.
Or the LA Phil.
There's nothing wrong with artistic expression. It's whether as a listener, as an individual, I feel it's pure or it's created for other reasons that we don't know. If my soul says, I don't connect with this, it feels forced, bam. Now, when it comes to Machine Gun Kelly's new music, to me, it sounds like a guy who's got a lot of confidence, having a lot of fun. Now, I'm not going to play it regularly, but I've got people that listen to the station that have requested it, so he's got a home on what was that. So it's not all about me, but
sure.
It's a fascinating, and we could talk about it for hours. It's fascinating. What do you think, Jordan?
Oh, I mean, I like both of those artists, and I think all ships raise, the tides type thing.
A rising tide raises all boats. Is that what you mean?
Yes.
Yeah.
So I think if they want to play in the genre and be rock and roll, I think it's great for everybody. And like, to your point, it's like, if that's what they want to do for their art, so be it. But I think it's cool, like you said, if they're playing guitar music and have like inspiring kids to want to listen to that music or play guitars or be in bands, like, I think that's great.
So John, was it Hours? Was that the one you're thinking of?
Was it? Did you check it whilst I was?
The Funeral for a Friend record, I think it's called Hours. I think that's the one you're thinking of.
Let me pull it up now on.
I also have one other little fun factoid that Jordan made me think of when she was talking about kids being inspired by these artists. Is I don't know if you guys saw, but Fender, Gibson, Martin, and Taylor guitars all had their best years in 2020 in like 30-something years.
Huh.
And I think a lot of that has to do with the pandemic, and people were at home and looking for something constructive to do. But it's like, hey, like, if that's the thing that brings people back to guitars, I think that's awesome. As a guitar player, I think everyone should play guitar. But
I'd be interested to speak to Machine Gun Kelly one day and ask him, were you fed up with reading all these ridiculous articles saying that rock and roll is dead? And you sat there going, this is ridiculous. I'll fucking show you, you know. It was Tales Don't Tell Themselves, the third record.
Okay.
Masterpiece. But, I mean, yeah, I love that question.
I'm going to listen to that later today.
Yeah, and my favorite on that is, and I pulled it up on Wiki, All Hands on Deck, Part 1, Raise the Sail. That is just, yeah, that's just masterful. Masterful.
Yeah, that's not a record I know as well as some of their others, so I will definitely spend some time with that one and just see what I think. I'm sure I'll enjoy it. I love the band, so.
Now, I'll address your question from a radio standpoint and as a musicologist that would work in modern rock. And for the last 10 years, well, I mean, until how long is it? What's the date right now? Yeah, until 7 months ago. What would bum me out is I always try and make the connections that we're making today. This is awesome, and I really appreciate both of your time. Like I'm the John Peel old school radio guy that looks to really elevate and get to know the soul behind the music. And so what sucked for me when Machine Gun Kelly first started flirting that was I knew that the mainstream, you can't ignore it. You can't ignore him. And what radio loves doing in Canada, I won't speak for the US. And to go way back to Jordan's comment, yeah, rock in the US is fascinating. You're either Five Finger Death Punch or you're Bon Iver. It's a very strange system down there. There's no in between. So I totally get that. And not to think that I didn't notice that. But with radio in Canada, in terms of modern rock, what they love here, all stations, is crossover hits. So when Adele put out, what was it, 8-9 years ago, the rock station I was on started playing it. What was the Adele song like 8 years ago? Rolling in the Deep, right? It's got that classic rock sensibility with a pop vibe in it. Let's own that before the top 40 station plays it or the popular music station plays it. So from my experience of Canadian radio, it's about trying to grab that crossover, because it's all about bringing in listeners to sell advertising to make money for a shareholder. So if you've got 21 Pilots and they can fit with you as well, they will find those vibes to have that and that's what I also love about radio at the same time, is that, like, if we go back to what I said, I heard the station I played for, used to work for, playing Daft Punk to Tool, but then with the modern new Foo Fighters, and then with the new Cage Elephant. And I thought that was great. So what, to get to my point, would frustrate me, and what must really hurt artists that have been knocking on the door, having conversations like you where they're told you're not quite alt enough or you're not quite rock enough, is they're like, Jesus, these artists have just done a complete 180. And now we thought they were just going to be on pop and that we might find a way. Now it's closing the circle even more. So there's loads of positives and loads of little mini negatives. But if anything, it just galvanizes people more to make sure that they're working as hard as they can on their passion. And one would hope that then, much like we've conversed with you two, that they're not changing and editing who they are and why they're making in the first place. They're aware that maybe we don't fit this, so we'll throw this rock song at them, but we're not going to change our entire makeup for some guy that could be fired in 2 or 3 days because he didn't bring in enough revenue for playing the right music. There's so many different systems at play. I know I'm throwing big statements around, but it's so finite. It's such a great question, Brian, because this could be a 3-hour conversation. Because there's so many finite details that make it all up.
It could be its own podcast topic for an episode or two.
Oh my gosh!
I just find it really interesting because I don't want to beat it to death, but just as I said earlier, it's watching some of these artists who are crossing over or kind of taking that road now, which is less traveled to your average radio listener. In some ways, it's kind of reopening opportunities in the genre, I guess. So I think it's more positive than not. Probably is my place on it. It's a confusing thing in some ways as well. So, anyway,
life's a flipping trip. It's fascinating, and there's no wrong answer to anything. Everyone's their own self, and as long as they're staying true to what they feel deep down and not just verbalizing someone else's quote because it's the cool thing to do, then I'm all for it. There's no right or wrong.
Cool.
Okay, well, let's look at the clock here. A little over an hour at this point, and I got to go and help do some other things. And you've got lives to live too, but I could keep this conversation going forever. I'm just cognizant of the fact that, is there anything that I've missed that you would both like to get out there to those that are still watching this an hour into this little conversation with Jane in the Jungle?
Well, actually, I think you've done a really good job of getting the story out there.
That's your
and
mum did
how-
that, not me.
Well, you help get it out of her, and kind of who we are. And how did you find us, by the way?
I don't know the blog. I have like
Did they just do like a write-up on a song of ours?
yeah, I have so many blogs that are bookmarked.
Because I find
Did I
that
say
fascinating.
bookmarked? Yeah.
Well, that's so cool. And I just want to say thank you to everybody, and sort of like yourself too, for supporting independent artists and local artists and artists that are not in the mainstream, and inspiring others to just be themselves and create the music that is the most real, that they're passionate about. And I think that's what inspires other people. And you can feel that when it's authentic to yourself. And I just appreciate you for supporting artists like that, and for the fans that stream our music or stream music, other bands like us and unknown artists, because that really makes a difference. And at the end of the day, we make music for you guys, for people to listen to, because it wouldn't be very fun if it was just for us. We wouldn't go into a recording studio and pay all this money just so I can listen to it. Well, I guess sometimes it feels that way, but I'll just at the gym type thing. So it's really cool. And that's why every day I try to look at Twitter and like really see who's listening, because I just think that is so cool. So just thank you guys.
Well, for me, when the band that I was in for not too long, but it was incredible, when we managed to get on the radio, the way that I've built What Was That is that it's okay to have your Cage Elephants and your Pearl Jams. It's okay to play them. I would argue a Smells Like Teen Spirit, you play it every 2 or 3 weeks on a rock station so that it carries that energy still. It's not over and over again. It reminds you, Jesus Christ, remember what I was doing back then? I don't know if I want to. Well, it's reminding me, what a trip. Mm-hmm. It's so cool when we heard ourselves in between, like it went like The Killers, Mr. Brightside, us, and then Pearl Jam. And I was like, that's trippy. That's really, really trippy. And so that's why what I'm trying to do is, I'm not saying that there'll never be an established band on, because then one could argue, well, even getting on the station makes them established, because no one understands the systems that are in place to get out there, and you wish to be discovered, but you don't know how. And so that's why I like to build What Was That, in the sense that no artist is going to play more than once a day. And there might be those circumstances where, yeah, it goes The Killers, Jane in the Jungle, and then Pompoko from Norway, who I think are a great emerging rock band. I don't know if you're aware of them. I mean, there's...
Spell them.
Sorry?
How do you spell them?
Pompoko.
Okay.
Really, 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 if you dive into their YouTube first, get ready to watch some really strange animated videos.
Cool.
And so there's again, no wrong answers and no wrong opinions about anything. It's just I'm selfishly building a playlist that I feel is really cool and it elevates. If you're going, I can't figure out if I've got to have a splinter in my finger this whole interview. Anyway, I've just been driving it deeper in. Don't worry about it. So I'll get rid of that afterwards. But that's why the way that I build the set list and the algorithm is that I don't want it to be like, if we're looking at American radio hard rock, Five Finger Death Punch, Nickelback, Papa Roach, respect to all those bands mentioned, but it's just the same after the same after the same. Now, people love that. What I'm trying to do is that if Jane in the Jungle comes on, it might go to a Glass Animals, and then it might come to a Pompoko. It gives that breathing space, like Mrs. White's stories, to be appreciated and go, oh shit, what was that? It gives it a bit more power to be elevated to your consumer or listener that might have found What Was That and goes, okay, I need to write that down and see if they've got a Bandcamp and see if they've got a YouTube. So, but again, that's just my little way of trying to do it. So
yeah, I think that's awesome.
I like that format a lot because, something that you just mentioned, especially in active rock, it can be so easy for everything to just meld together as you're listening. It's like, what? I couldn't pick out any of the last 3 songs from the other because it's like they just all kind of were so in this one little box down the road.
Yeah.
It's like which was which. So no, so I have an appreciation of some eclectic mixing and give me something, and give me something I never heard of too. That's like the fun part, is discovering the music.
Yeah, well, throw on What Was At sometime. There's 3,000 artists, and it's gonna just. But yeah, I don't want to start ranting and raving about me, but it's just, that's what's so refreshing about being able to do this on my own terms, is I'm not worried about adhering to an advertiser or an investor. I'm looking for the musicologists. I'm not worried about the millions upon millions. I'm looking for the handful that have the time to sit down and go, hold up, what's Jordan? I mean, they probably presume you were Jane until I dived in further, right? What are they thinking about? What were they going through in this moment? And so I would love for you both to consider jumping into our Discord and just seeing how the community stands up for each other, how they are compassionate, and how they love fucking music, and how they're just open. It's just so refreshing to not have to think that there's some hidden agenda somewhere. And we all just analyze the shit out of music, but not for the negative, but for like, how can we learn and grow from it? And why is it getting us going like this? What's the root of this flame that's been lit? I've been playing so much Animal Crossing recently now with Harley and Jody that I'm thinking of making a little fire. I need 5 pieces of wood. Anyway, it's a game that you might not even know exists. I barely play computer games, but it's a Switch thing. Just relaxes me in the evening after ranting in interviews the whole time throughout the day.
Yeah.
But I could talk for hours. And I'd love to catch up again in several months or a year, or any time you've got something new, send it. It gets played. It's a no-brainer, much like how you two reconnected after the initial Brian leaving. And please do also send any voice notes, anything you want to share with the audience and for people to know. Just send it. It's an instant ad. There's no gates that have to be opened through certain dialogue and certain aesthetics of genre manipulation. Just send it and I play it, because I know from the releases you've put out there publicly since 2017 that I got a lot of time for it.
Awesome. No, that's awesome. I appreciate your passion to music and your dedication to what you're doing is its own art form as well. So I appreciate the dedication to that craft, and thank you.
Hopefully in 4, 5, 6 years, we can come back together and you can join me in all the other bands I'm very lucky to meet in between that time. And we can say, right, we'd like more money for license for radio stations. We'd like more money from those sponsors and CEOs channeled back in. But again, not posturing. We'll build our little quiet, passionate community now, and then we'll all come together and try and affect change for the better later on.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
It's not a cult. It's not a cult, just to be clear.
Not yet.
All right.
It's more of a club at this point.
Yes, exactly.
I think that's great. And we'll keep you posted, like I said, with the new stuff. And I'll try to work on sending over, like you said, a little voice ad or something.
Just grab your iPhone or your smartphone, whatever you got, your Android, and just record a little voice note. And if it's 1 minute, 2, 3 minutes long, I don't care. I don't edit it. I don't change it. The expression of the artist is there for a reason. So I'm not worried about cutting out gaps of silences or ums and ahs. And it's just, that's why.
A little phone memo.
Yeah, just phone memo rather, and just email it off. Make it, create it, send it. And if you're like, shit, check it, and then send me an email saying, maybe don't air it. I don't change anything. I'm not worried about that. This interview will go on YouTube as it is. This interview will be aired on the radio station as it is, uninterrupted. Through the awkwardness of, hang on a second, Brian, Jordan, you're saying that you're unhappy with me for a few years. We want to talk about this every bit, because it's organic and it's real. I don't want to edit anyone. I want everyone to just, whether they watch it for 5 minutes or the whole hour and 15 through. This is us three in this moment talking about what we love, music. Simple.
Well, there's more than 3 of us, remember?
Well, the Sloth, Mrs. White, your brothers that were in the background, we'll have to credit them, and I don't have like a rolling credits. Maybe it's the first one. Good. Okay.
Totally fine.
Sweet. Well, thank you both so much. I really, really appreciate your time. This has been a real flipping delight. A real delight. Thank you.
Yeah, likewise. Thank you for finding our music and reaching out to us.
Well, the way that I've been going about it, and the last thing I'll say is this: when an artist continually is tweeting or liking and then follows back, that to me is that organic, unforced intrigue. And then I'm like, hey, okay, would you like to chat? And so I appreciate your diligence in the first place, because that's what leads to those organic, unforced conversations where we actually speak freely like we have here, not worrying about the unknown, and just chat. It's just a conversation.
Yeah.
And they're the best.
Yeah. No, I appreciate you letting us digress here and there, because I think that's where the best conversation can have. Because there's only so many times you can go and say, well, Jordan and Brian, well, what is this song about? Or how'd you get the band name? You know what I mean? You know, those same 5 canned questions that you get in every interview. It's nice to talk about the state of music and what we're listening to, or what we're, the childhood stories are all fun. So I appreciate your flexibility in that and rolling with it.
I never plan any questions. I just dive into the artist and their history, and then I let our energies in that moment, as cheesy as it sounds, because the amount of times I prepped in my early career for an interview, and you've got 10 minutes and you've got 3 questions, and then if the artist is pissed off from the last 300 people they spoke to, so the last 4 or 5 years have just been like, right, how are you? What number in the line of interviews am I today? What should we not talk about? And then we just have a chat. And the amount of times I got called into an office saying, you didn't fucking talk about the single. Well, because he didn't want to talk about the single. And I don't want to get blood out of a stone and get the same, yeah, we had a great time making it. And, we're in the studio, he slept a lot, the same story, right? Because you can hear it and the listener can hear it. Like, okay, just get back to the music. It's not fair on the artist. Anyway, the last 10 minutes I feel like has been me going round and round in my flipping passion ball. So I appreciate you entertaining that. Let's leave it so that you can go and live your lives, and we'll reconnect another time, because we're not done with these conversations about music. Not at all.
Well,
yeah, thank you, John.
Awesome. You got to hang up on me this time.
Oh, yeah. Well, enjoy your evening.
Thank you very much. You too.
Yeah, good night, guys.
See ya.
See you in a bit.